Good evening, my family. So, I am fixing to work in the kitchen tonight, and I'm going to bring you yet another item that you can put on your table for the coming up holidays. And I have a few other things I'm going to talk about. Welcome, my family. I am Carrie from Parton's Heritage Homestead, and we are a Mediterranean homestead. Here we are going to be working on some dishes or side items that we can use towards our holidays coming up. Also, today's actual star of our kitchen is going to be a sweet potato. We are actually going to make this a twice baked sweet potato to go with my supper tonight. But it's an idea that you can turn this thing into a Mediterranean style. Others that I'm going to be working on this week, I am going to challenge myself. Years ago, my mama taught me how to make homemade pierogies. And I could put a pierogi, make it up, put it in a pan, and serve it to my family. However, today becomes a different story. I do have a type 2 diabetic husband, so that means my flour has to change. So with that, we are going to be working with kamut. Kamut is the 1 grain, hang on a second. We're talking the whole grain, y'all. As you can see this, the whole grain kamut. Now, the reason I'm using this is, number one, a whole grain tends to break down a lot slower. Number two, kamut is the sister brand to durum wheat. Durum wheat affects diabetic sugar, not before when you're making it and all that. When you start to boil it, that's when everything messes up right there, and a type 2 diabetic will spike. But kamut does not. It's an ancient grain. It breaks down slower, and somehow my husband is able to eat this. So I am also wanting to make some crab linguine. So that would be a beautiful dish. Both pierogi dough that I am going to make, I am going to see if I can make my pierogies out of kamut and us be able to have pierogies again. And I will also be making this into pasta so that we can have the crab linguine. So these are things I'm looking to do this week. I'm just hoping I can find the time to do it. So in the meantime, what we're going to work on is this beauty right here, a sweet potato. Now, let's get started. I forgot to mention one thing, y'all. So, and first, wash your potato. So I did forget to mention, what if you have not seen it yet and didn't get the notification, there is a short video that went out today, and it is the announcement to the crocheting kitchen set. Please, if you are interested in the drawing, go to that short video, get your name in the comments below so that you can be available for the drawing, which will happen on October the 1st. That video will give you full details about it, and it is a short. So I thought I'd remind you, if you haven't seen it, please go to that short. Now, we'll get started on our supper. Okay, y'all, so we are going to start with our sweet potato. Clean off all the whatever root ends or whatever on here. Now we're going to take this, and we're just going to coat this sweet potato in olive oil. And you want to coat it pretty good. And this is basically all we're going to do to this. Now we're going to pop this in the oven until it is fork tender. Now, let me wash my oil off my hands. Now this is going to go in a preheated 350 degree oven. Now it was that simple. Wash it, clean it up, put your olive oil on it. Now we stick this in the oven until it is fork tender. Once it's fork tender, we'll be back. In the meantime, we're going to prepare for our filling. Okay, y'all, so I went to the garden and I got two homegrown fresh scallions, or green onions. And we're going to slice these because we're going to need this. I'm actually going to be using some homemade ghee. You can use ghee, butter, or olive oil for this dish. But I am going to be using the homemade ghee. I've got one jar left, y'all. So I'm going to definitely, for this winter, going to have to stock up on butter. Because these prices are going high again. And I want my ghee in my fridge for the entire winter. Alright, so we have our scallions. And we're going to set this dish up. I'm also needing 1 egg, again, farm fresh. So we're also using chickpeas, home canned, some frozen spinach. I'm using what I have on the homestead. I was out of baby spinach, but I do have some frozen spinach, so I'm going to substitute with this. So let's get this party started. Okay, yeah, so I'm going to add about a tablespoon or so of homemade ghee or ghee. This is pretty good and solid, so it's a bit rough to get out of my jar, but so worth it. Now this will leave a nutty flavor, basically, because ghee is clarified butter. It's such a beautiful flavoring. Now we're going to go ahead and let this melt some. And once it's melted, we'll come back and we're going to finish off with the rest of our ingredients. I did defrost my spinach, so I want to drain it a little bit. I am also going to go ahead and start draining my chickpeas and rinsing these off. Okay, y'all, so our ghee is now melted, and I am going to be adding our green onions and our spinach. Now, I will say that baby spinach fresh would be a lot better, but if you have to, use what you've got. Frozen is just as much fresh. However, it can be a little bit more crumbly than the fresh aspects of it. So we're just going to mix this together, saute this up, and that's basically going to be all the cooking to this filling until we put it back into our sweet potato, because it'll go back in the oven again, and that will be to heat through. So right now we're just going to go and do this. Now if you were using fresh baby spinach at this point, you would be adding, you would be cooking this or sauteing this until the spinach was wilted, and then you would remove it from the heat. This is pretty much cooked through. So I'm going to take this off my heat, let this cool off, and then we're going to add the rest of our ingredients. Alright, y'all, so our sweet potato is tender all the way through. Now we have just cut this in half. We're going to set this aside, and we're going to let it cool for 10 minutes. Because we do not want it in our mix too much, because in our mix we're going to actually add 1 raw egg in here. This is another reason why we're going to bake this. I'm going to be adding about, for this amount, this is for basically 1 sweet potato, so I'm going to add about a half a cup or so of chickpeas. And we'll be right back. Okay, so now I'm also going to be adding about 1/4 to 1/2 cup of grated parmesan. I'm going to add some pepper. I'm not really going to add salt to this because it's going to end up getting salted, or with the Parmesan cheese it gets salted anyways. So we're not exactly done with this yet because the flesh from the sweet potatoes are also going to get mashed in here. So at this point we're going to wait a minute, get these cooled off some, come back, and we will put our pulp from our sweet potatoes into our filling mix. Okay, y'all, so our sweet potatoes have been, the insides of our potatoes have been removed, and we left just enough behind to leave a shell because we are going to refill that shell. So I'm going to take the sweet potatoes now and we're going to add them to our mix. And then we're going to mash this whole thing together. Now I did also, which I forgot to add this, y'all, there is at least 1 tablespoon of sour cream or creme fraiche, whichever you have available. I didn't have creme fraiche, so I used sour cream. And now we're just going to take this and mash them all together. Yes, you're going to end up mashing some of your chickpeas. It's okay. It's basically meant to do that. And we're just going to mash this up the best way we can. I actually need a different masher than this one. I like the circle one with the little squares in it. I'll have to get one of those one day. In the meantime, this one works. If you don't have a masher, you can very much use a fork for this. Which I may end up doing that because this one has some gaps. Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and finish out the rest with a fork, y'all. Just to get some of these bigger pieces here. There we go. I'm not afraid of old-fashioned stuff, y'all. This is how our forefathers started. And I'm no better. There we go. Now we've got this all mixed. And now we're going to take this stuffing straight back to our potatoes. And we are going to fill them in. So we're going to get set up and then show you the next step. I'll show you what this looks like at first. This is the filling that goes inside of our sweet potatoes. So basically it's a sweet potato with some beans, and now the beans will help slow down the process of any sugar spikes or whatever, and it adds a little bit more fiber to it, more protein as well. Alright, this is good. So now we're going to get started on filling. Okay, y'all, so now we take our filling, we just basically put it right back inside of our potato, just like this. Now, if there is anything left over, you can put it in a baking dish and use it. Just like so. And I will definitely have some left over, so. And notice there was no actual recipe. It is just ingredients again, because it is that simple. And I will be putting the list of ingredients for you. You use everything by your taste. And like I said, if you have leftovers on the filling, that's fine. You can turn it into a sweet potato casserole, basically. Alright, so now we got both of these filled in. Separate this. Now, we're going to go ahead and add some cheese on top. I'm going to get this put into a baking dish, and we're going to put the cheese on it too. So we'll be right back. Alright, y'all, in a greased baking dish, add your filling to it. Now we are going to top these with mozzarella. You can use any type of cheese you want. I'm actually using fresh mozzarella on the tops of mine. And then we're going to pop these right back in the oven. I'm just going to line the tops just like so. All right, y'all. Now we're going to put this back in the oven until this is heated through and the cheese is melted. And I will show you the finished product when we are done. And it just came out of the oven, y'all. Look how beautiful this is. And I tasted this. The blending of all of the flavors, from the onions to the spinach to those chickpeas. I was really concerned when I started this, how would the chickpeas interact with the sweet potato? But it is so creamy. You have the sweetness of the sweet potato mixed with that earthy flavor of the beans. And y'all, this is a medley in your mouth that is a force to be reckoned with. It is, to me, I absolutely love this. Now, I can see this on my table for Thanksgiving turned into a casserole, just so y'all know. This could be the sweet potato casserole on our table. So this is something I am looking at. Maybe you might be interested in it as well. So y'all, that will conclude tonight's episode in the kitchen. And I'm hoping these are helping you. And I mean, they're healthy meals, but they're so full of flavor. And I did get some responses for these acorn squash. I seriously hope you all try that one. It is absolutely amazing. This one here rightfully is the same thing. I could easily see this, instead of a twice baked into the shell, put this into a casserole dish, and I could easily see this as a sweet potato casserole Mediterranean way. So, well, y'all, I'm getting ready to go feed the rest of the farm, get it over for this evening, and I am fixing to eat supper. So, I will be back with you again. Remember, check out that video about the drawing. And y'all, I know that this is just handmade from my hands, but there's a philosophy into what I'm doing, and I'm going to share that with you. Years ago, and generations from generations, at one point we didn't have all the fancy things that are in the world as they are today. Over the years, the economies, the ingenuity, the technology, everything had changed. And so when it did, it became even pricier and pricier. I have agreed to the fact is I have seen so many things and products out there, they're strictly unaffordable. And so I decided to go back to my generation when a gift was made from your hand and from your heart, where a gift was more affordable in this manner, and it meant something, and it meant more. You all mean the world to me. You are a family in my heart. And so, although it may not be extremely expensive, fancy, or full of technology, it is from my heart and it is from my hands, and it's my way of showing you, in a world that right now is so expensive, we can barely put food on our table, I can still use these two hands. And as long as I do, I am spreading a legacy behind. I am spreading a little bit of me to somebody else's family, an heirloom that came from me to you and your family. Y'all are going to get me to crying in a minute. This is very deep to my heart, and this is something money can't buy. It is pure love. So until next time, much, much love. Mwah, from Parton's Heritage Homestead.